Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great evening and ready to get into some gin cocktails with number 3 gin. It's the start of summer once Novio starts switching over their focus to gin, so we're really excited for this. Before I introduce James, let's get into getting a cocktail in our hands. So if you haven't already started, let's get the gin and tonic going. Super easy to make, even though there's a couple ways to do it wrong. We'll start with a Collins glass or a rocks glass. A pint glass would be way too big for this cocktail. Our number 3 gin, which James, remind me to talk to you about how much I love how this is in my hand and how it fits in my hand. So many bottles don't fit properly, and this is a great one for a bartender. We are going to pour 2 ounces into the Collins glass of number 3 gin. A lot of times when you pour your alcohol into a glass, you get like a little shrinkage or meltage of your ice. I like to re-ice a little bit, right, to fill the glass back up with ice. Then add your tonic. We're using Swan tonic tonight. It's from South Africa. And then we're going to roll it. If you ever get a gin and tonic and you take that first sip and all you get is tonic, then you take your last sips and all you get is gin, that's because the bartender did not roll your cocktail. Same thing with a highball, same technique. And now it's complete. You can garnish that with a grapefruit. You can a lemon, however you want to garnish that. I'm going to do a quick grapefruit slice here. There you go. Cheers. James, this is the first gin cocktails in the state of Maine with number 3 gin ever. So that's
Cheers,
exciting.
everybody. That's
Cheers.
an exciting evening for it to land and arrive.
So good.
It sounds like you were sweating it once again as well.
Yeah, I feel like that's been the par for the course lately with shipments coming into the state. For those who don't know, James Darcy is joining us again from Edrington. He is in Maryland, not too far from Baltimore, I believe. So this is a great treat to be joined once again by the master. And I understood that you were incredibly excited when Edrington started distributing number 3 gin. So I'm pumped to be working with you on this, and I can't wait to learn everything there is about this amazing bottle.
I'm excited to be here, and like you said, Bob. So first off, it's great to see everyone again. Those that I've met before. I wish I was up there and I could be standing beside you, Bob, so we could take up the whole bar and be making everything together. But truthfully, this particular bottle, the bottle did look a little bit different when I was last using it. But when I was still cutting my teeth behind the bar in central London, number 3 gin was a big part of the program that we ran. And I've been a huge fan of the gin for a long time. It's everything that I'm personally looking for in a gin. It's a big world. People like different things. People have different palates and flavors, but this for me is the be all and end all. So when you find out that that's what's joining your portfolio, you get really, really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is from looking at the bottle, right? So right all the way, it jumps right out on, the white label, big letters right underneath, London Dry Gin.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a generic question. I know the answer to it, but I'm going to throw it out. London Dry versus slow versus, there's 5 or 6 different types.
So I can, and I'll do my best to make this super quick and snappy because I know it's like just the nitty gritty technical part of it, right?
Yep.
Gin, something that's neutral with juniper flavor, like the biggest definition of gin there is, which could legally be gin vodka, basically. That's the most loose definition. That's just gin. Then you have distilled gin, where the flavorings and the juniper really has to come through during distillation, right? So we've got two differences here. One is flavored vodka. You could basically add juniper flavor to it. You could put some juniper berries into a bottle of vodka or similar and end up calling it, like, it can legally be called gin. To be called a distilled gin, that flavor has to arrive at that flavor at some point during the distillation process, but you can then still add something to it. Okay, so like Hendrix is a great example. Okay, Hendrix, they get the flavor during distillation, but then afterwards they add the essence of cucumber and rose. There's a lot of different gins that do these kinds of things. That's a distilled gin. A London dry gin, it gets kind of like even further down into the weeds here. It doesn't have to be made in London, but it is a distilled gin where all of the flavor is coming during distillation. And for it to be classified as dry, there has to be less than like 0.1 grams of sugar per, it's either a liter or a hectoliter. If it's a hectoliter, it's very big. But
Yeah.
basically there has to be, you can't really, like, you can, but it's like the smallest amount that you just, it's going to be bone dry, which of course is the clues in the name. Throughout that, yes, the predominant flavor has to be juniper, but there's so many gins that I've had these days, and there's a number of gins in the past, I'm like, that did not taste like juniper, that tasted like pineapple. I'm into it, but I'm also, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm English, I have this feeling that my gin should taste like juniper. And then to your point, there's other things. Slow gin, we're adding some slow berries, SLOE, infusing that into there, gives it some color, gives it some flavor. People are familiar with Old Tom gins, a style that was traditionally sweetened. And then a bathtub gin. I mean, the clue's in the name. If you were to take spirit and put it in a bathtub, not how they make it today. I don't think that people that make bathtub gin have bought like 50,000 bathtubs that they lay out. But you take that and you basically throw the flavorings into it and wait for it to infuse. And that would be the infused or the, just gin. I think that's it.
So this is the London dry, low sugar, high juniper. And then the next thing that really pops out is the key, which is a beautiful key. And I got to be honest, I was like trying to pick at it to see if I can get the key off the bottle. So
I'm not inviting everyone to try right now. You can make it happen. We've come a long way. I remember years ago, it was much easier to get the key off. The key stays on more now, but leverage is your friend, though I'm not encouraging you all to do this. Please keep an extra bottle. Not with a full bottle. I'll tell you what, if you keep a key in your pocket and you've ever come across a bar that doesn't have a key and you give them a key to put back on that bottle, let me know and I'll do something nice. The key itself, so Berry Brothers and Rudd is the company, is the household that kind of conceived of number 3 gin. And they're the oldest wine merchants in the world. They're established in 1698. And they've been, they've been wine and spirit merchants in London from then on. I mean, they've been serving the royalty for decades, actually for centuries at this point. And so within their old premises at number 3, on number 3 St. James's, they have a parlor, which was their dining room. If you go into the dining room to this day, that obviously is the place that used to host people. I'll be honest, we have premises around the corner now as well, but we do still own this property. And in the parlor, you'll find the old, they're almost like caricatures, but they're also, they're really portraits of people from like the 1700s, 1800s. They're like really old ones that you see people in their tweeds going out hunting, whatever they do. And if your picture is still up in that room, it means that that family is still buying from them to this day. Like, this is how historic this household is for wine and spirits. And the key to that room is what this key was modeled off of. So I think for them as a design cue and a design key, it was, for them, it was all about trust. Like, for them, it's the symbol of like, look, if your family is still buying from us, literally hundreds of years later, generations later, for them, they felt it was a sign of trust. It looks beautiful. It obviously can be an iconic image. And that's really where it came from.
That's great. And I just want to say this, there's a lot of you I trust a great deal on this call. none of you are going to be having a key to the restaurant, just so you know.
And this key does not open the parlor. So just to put that out there.
Okay.
It won't work. It won't work if you try and take it.
I will happily give you all a key that doesn't open up any door that I have access to.
It'll just say Novio's on it.
I trust you all with a key that doesn't open anything. I 100% trust you with that. And then on the key, now that my glasses are on, I can read it. It said citrus, juniper, and spice, which I'm assuming is the backbone of your gin.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is not why it's called number 3, because obviously it's the address, but it's, in this case, you can think of it as a magic number. We have the citrus, we have the juniper, we have the spice. The juniper's number 1, and there's just juniper. That's one of the botanicals.
Yeah.
There's 2 forms of citrus, and that's going to be grapefruit peel and orange peel. Just to let you know what it's providing, if you can find it in the gin, the orange peel is actually what's providing the warmth. It's not providing the citrus, really, it's providing warmth. The grapefruit peel is what's providing the citrusy notes, because a lot of gins have lemon peel or similar. In this case, it's actually the grapefruit that's providing that, with a little bit of one of the spices, coriander, which is cilantro, right? It's just the seed. Back in the UK, we call cilantro coriander anyway. Out here, coriander is typically the seed, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's coriander seed, which is really, really citrusy. It has this kind of high notes. I've got some here. It has this kind of high notes. That's a reflection. High note, lemony kind of note to it, which ties in with the citrus. Before then, the other 2 spices that we use are angelica root, which is the dryness at the end, and then some cardamom. And that's just providing that lovely warm spice. It's not over the top. Obviously, it's a great deal. We weren't trying to make. They were trying to make the perfect gin. That's what we were trying to make. I know that seems like it's subjective. They want to make the perfect gin for a martini, the perfect gin for a gin and tonic, knowing that if you can nail those 2 where there's nowhere to hide, you're going to have a gin that's going to work in everything.
Yeah.
And anything. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of making the perfect gin, this gin has won the best gin of the world 4 times.
Yep, 4 times, and it's also won supreme champion as well. Before, which it's great because it's people at the height of their game recognizing the spirit for what it is. And I remember the first time that I opened this gin, there's something about it that's just so crystal. There's lots of gins that I love, there's lots of gins that I like, but there's something about number 3 that's so crystalline and to a point and precise. I just don't find it in really anything else, to be honest. And so it has won, the best in class, not just class, but best in show kind of situation.
What's interesting is you said it won supreme champion in 5th grade field day at Nathan Hale Elementary School. I also won supreme champion of the school. So I can relate to this gin in a lot of ways. And I feel like that it calls me.
That's right. And it's the kind of thing that, you just like us, you'd never say it yourself. Wait a minute. No, never mind.
I took notes of everyone who rolled their eyes at my supreme champion thing. I peaked in about 6th grade. I was pretty awesome in 5th grade. So that was a good 1984 was good for me. So let's talk a little bit. You mentioned a gin and tonic and a martini. We're having the gin and tonic now. Let's talk about martinis a little bit because, this is, I kind of feel like before we get into making the martini, we have to talk about it. I gave on our sheet here just a standard martini of using the number 3 gin, a dry vermouth, and then and I added lemongrass bitters from Allen Whale because I have 2 children I had to put through college at some point, so we need to try some more bitters. And honestly, I'll also say I feel like the bitters add something nice. What I would suggest people do is maybe let's make the gin and tonic without them. Make the martini without the bitters, and then let's maybe try it later on in your life with. And same thing with the gin and tonic. I didn't make this one with it. I'm trying to enjoy that gin, but try it later with the lemongrass bitters. It's a great bitter for gin, but tonight you can just use that sample for fodder if that works.
And I think especially with that warmth of the cardamom that is in the number 3, I think really the lemongrass just brings in even more of that sense of like traveling eastward, you know, especially from London, or in this case, Skidam, which is where it's made.
So I did a 2 ounce, 1 ounce, right, on the vermouth, but there's so many different ways. You have your dry vermouth, which I would do like, if somebody said they wanted dry, I would do 2.5 ounces of gin, 1/2 ounce of vermouth. People do bone dry, where they want basically no vermouth. Some people want a rinsed, where you're going to put it in your glass, swirl it around, and dump it, almost like you're making a Sazerac. Some people want the bartender to gargle with vermouth, spit it out, and then breathe on the glass. There's a whole bunch of different ways to make a martini. So does James / number 3 / Edrington have a preference, or is it kind of like make the gin martini the way you enjoy it, just make it with number 3?
Yeah, so I'd say like much like, whilst these opinions may not be those of the company at large, but I'm the person who's sitting here, so this is where we're going to go. Like, first and foremost, absolutely, like your personal preference or whoever you're making the martini for, like it's like a martini is like a steak, you know, and it's not just like a steak, it's like a steak with sauce. What cut, how do you want it cooked, what sauce you're putting onto, like every little aspect. A martini is that personal. And as great as it is, if your favorite thing to do is have a really well done peppered steak, if somebody likes it black and blue with nothing else on it and maybe some salt, they're not going to like it, even though they're both steaks. It's the same kind of thing with a martini, right? So, you know, my preference, but I'm also, my problem with the martini is that I drink it very quickly, because that's my preferred way to have it, is when it's as cold as possible. With that being the case, I've ended up erring on the side of drinking. Typically, if I'm casually having a martini, I'll typically have a 50-50 martini. So I'll be having, you know, equal parts of dry vermouth with number 3, a lemon twist, and 2 dashes of orange bitters. Ironically, I either like it like that, or if I know I'm having one and I'm having nothing else, I'll almost go to the exact opposite extreme, because I've got to tell you, number 3 in the freezer, doing the method that I arguably growing up was like, I don't think this is really a martini, but frozen glass, frozen gin, refrigerated vermouth in the glass, back into the bottle, and then just pouring number 3 gin and putting a lemon twist over the top is unbelievably good. There's almost like a, you know, people sometimes will add olive juice. I've always been a lemon twist person. People will add olive juice. You do you. I think people add the olive juice to give it that little bit of salinity, a little bit of a brininess. There's something about number 3 when it's frozen with nothing else in there that almost has its own salinity as well, that just gives this perfect, like, so.
And we didn't even get into shaked versus stirred, right?
Oh boy.
The proper technique is a stirred martini, because there's no citrus in it, no fat. However, a lot of people like a shaken martini because it's going to get colder.
Yep.
And it will get a little bit more diluted. So if you're going to be drinking multiple martinis, maybe a shaken martini is better for you, because you're not going to have the full effect of the full ABV from the martini.
And if you
dilution from the water.
If you have vermouth in the mix, there's something about when you shake vermouth that you will taste it more. If you make the exact same martini, stirred, and then shake one and taste them side by side, the vermouth on the one that you've aerated more, kind of in the way that, I don't know that this is the reason why it happens that way, but you think about when we're drinking a wine, you'll often, you know, pull in a little bit of air through your mouth as well to help aerate it when you're tasting it. It's almost like it helps the aromatics of the vermouth come back out. And from my understanding, historically, I mean, we're talking late 1800s for the first written recordings of these. We're thinking it's probably coming out of a Martinez, which is in turn coming out of a Manhattan, because sweet vermouth was available in America before dry vermouth. And there's in the same book, there's two written things. There's I think there's the martini, and then there's the I think it's a Bradford a la martini, where the Bradford may be shaken and the regular martini was stirred, but they're both written in the same old text at the same time. So like I'm with you. I've never shaken martinis for the most part. If there's not fat, if there's not citrus, I'm typically going to be stirring my drinks. It's a habit, right? But at the end of the day, maybe life's also too short. Why not? Give it a go. Try it. See if you like it.
All right. So let's say we get after it. I know if you know how you like your martini, go ahead and make it that way. If you don't, I would say start with the traditional and then experiment. You have a large enough sample size so you can play around a little bit. So I'm going to put, I'll make the regular one just so everyone knows what I'm doing. 2 ounces. Well, first I started with my martini glass. I filled it with ice, filled it with water. So that glass is going to be nice and cold. I have my vermouth. Once you open your vermouth and you're using it, that should be refrigerated. Your vermouth is probably good for a week. And then I would just go ahead and throw it away. So 2 ounces.
Which you mean it's good for a week. After 6 days, have it,
drink it.
Have it on the 6th day.
And we can talk about this, but you can also pre-batch your martinis. Don't stir them, don't do anything else, but pre-batch them. And then put that into the freezer. It won't freeze, but it's colder now. You pull it out, just pour it over ice, stir it, and you're ready to go. I'm going to fill my mixing tin 3/4 of the way up. I'm going to stir it thoroughly. And James, I don't know if you know this about me. I'm anti-garnish.
You're anti-garnish.
I am not a fan of garnishes normally. The exception is gin martinis.
So I am pro the lemon peel. I'm pro lemon oil, and I won't be offended if it's not remaining in my glass. If you serve me a martini, providing you gave me the lemon oil on top, I'll be okay. But if you omit any lemon twist at all, I'll be very upset. I'm very upset. It's an exaggeration. And my vermouth is definitely older than a week, so I'm going to get my other bottle.
Out of curiosity, if people want to just either unmute real quick while I take my first sip or drop it into the chat, I would love to know what people's recipes they prefer for the gin martini. Do you like bone dry? Do you like rinsed? Dr. Clough, I know what you like. You don't need to tell us. It's in your customer profile on how you like your martinis. And also, I'll say the vermouth goes a long way in a quality cocktail. I know we've Rebecca pulling all the ways. If we talk about it with other things in the past, if you're making quality cocktails, in this sense using quality ingredients with your gin, you should be using quality ingredients with your vermouths. It makes a big difference. So I think I chose some vermouths that I would be proud to pour in the restaurant.
I think to that end as well, not just the vermouth, but especially in a martini, the ice that you're going to be using, if it's coming, if your gin or your vodka, no offense, vodka, if your base spirit of choice is frozen, that's obviously going to dilute your cocktail far less. Yeah. And if your ice is like straight from the refrigerator, but if you're pulling it from the dispense on the refrigerator and it's coming out all chipped and it's leaving all those little broken shards in there, the second you pour any spirit in, it's going to melt away all of that, and it's going to have immediately diluted your drink. So you can choose what lengths you want to go to if you want to get a larger block or larger blocks that are cracked in there. Traditionally, if I had the time when I was bartending, I'd always, pour water over my ice first, give it 2 stirs to break off any edges, let it melt away, strain it, because then I know that the ice that's in there has is intact, but then you still risk warming up that ice. So it's in something that is so naked, there's nowhere to hide. Every aspect plays such a big part, and the vermouth is massive, but even down to the ice makes a huge difference.
Excellent. I'm reading some of these, how people are enjoying their martinis. It is the oddest thing when people order martinis. You can have a table of 4 at the restaurant on a Friday night, 4 martinis, and I guarantee you they're all 4 are asked to be done differently. A twist, a olives, 3 olives, 2 olives, dirty, very dirty. It blows my mind how the martini may be the most controversial drink around.
And yet it seems so simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's typically 3, sometimes less ingredients, occasionally maybe 4, and yet it's the dichotomy. It's the most complex of cocktails to make and to get it right for what the person wants. Yet it's the simplest because there's practically nothing in it.
Yep. I'm loving this, and I just got a text message from 2 people that are on the call, and they're both saying winner, winner. So that's a nice thing about this. It's fun. And you said 4 ingredients. I'm assuming you're talking about the Vesper going into 4.
Well, in my case, I mean, again, if you want to include ice or not, let's say we're not. In my mind, often as I'm having a 50-50, my lemon peel is an ingredient because I'm expressing it over the top, and it does change the flavor a lot. I often use orange bitters. I have to say the lemongrass roll in so well, and they actually don't. I found that when I use the orange bitters that I have, and I might be using whatever orange bitters I have to hand, it usually introduces another flavor. But in this case, the lemongrass it doesn't feel like it's adding too much. It feels like it's falling straight into the cocktail, which is great. And then vermouth, and then the gin. So I usually do add a bitter, and I usually do have a peel. So that's my 4.
Not that we're making this into a commercial for me real quick, James, but Alan Whale does have a orange bitter that's coming out shortly. So you may
when I taste it, I will plug it.
If you like it. Don't plug it if you don't like it.
No, this is true. If I like it, I'll plug it.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's going to be great in the martini. It's
sure.
The bitter is designed to be worked with whiskey, and it's a high proof whiskey to get there, not a ethanol. So I actually don't think it's good in your martini, but I'll make sure you have a sample.
I'll try it.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Quick question, kind of a public safety question. Is the fruit infused? Should we be adding that to our alcohol consumption calculus, or is that just?
Great question. You can tell you're in the Navy and you're worried about your alcohol.
Julia has to work tomorrow. I know.
The fruit is non-alcoholic, so it's compressed and delicious, but not alcoholic, or not infused with any alcohol. That would be an interesting technique. Let's infuse our snack. No, that's just a fun snack for you. We did some, James, we did some compressed melon in our chamber sealer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they wanted to put cayenne pepper in with it to give it some heat, because they thought that would be a nice contrast with the gin. And I was like, let's just not do that right now.
That might be a nice horrifying surprise when you just inhale that, not knowing that there's cayenne pepper in there.
I was worried I would forget to tell somebody, and somebody would hate me. So
yeah, I mean, the first thing I would do if I received that is I'd open it and I'd just eat it, and then all I'd be able to have is fire for the rest of the night, guaranteed. Yeah.
So are there any questions? We're about halfway through our cocktail making and we're getting into the Bob portion of the cocktails. Yeah, Elizabeth is getting excited. We're getting into the Negronis. I can see the excitement. Are there any questions on number 3 or anything that you feel like I am not hitting on that we should hit on? Give you a chance. Bueller.
Well, Bob, as a,
Yes, sir.
I know that your heart lies with the brown spirits, as does mine. But this is excellent gin. I'm conflicted when it comes to gin because, you know, bourbon and especially rye was the king of the US until Prohibition. And then, you know, gin kind of took over quite well, almost led to the downfall. One wonders if it wasn't for that, would the renaissance of bourbon that we've seen in the last couple decades have come sooner? It's just my lament. I'll just.
I definitely lean towards Scotch, bourbon, rye, probably in that order. However, in the summer when I'm on the island with Annie and her parents, there's quite a bit of gin that gets consumed. James, I don't know if I've ever told you the story when Annie and I did our honeymoon 4 years ago this month in London during the World Cup. And we were in a pub watching England play a World Cup match. It went to penalty kicks and everything else. And they had a gin and tonic menu. Pick your gin, pick your tonic.
Yep.
And I didn't want to act like I didn't know what I knew. I didn't want to act like who I was. I didn't want to act like I was a tourist trying to find a local pub and screwing everything up. So I went to the pub and they're like, oh, pick your gin, pick your tonic. And I felt like everybody was looking at me. So I just panicked and I said, I'll take that gin on a rock, double, no tonic. So over a course of a 90-minute match, plus overtime, plus penalty kicks.
Were you watching England play by any chance? Because that is always how it goes to England, and we always lose on penalties. Yeah,
well, they won. They won.
Oh, they won.
Yeah,
oh,
I
nice.
watched. I couldn't tell you who they played. I ended up drinking 5 double gin and tonics on ice, and the bartender at the end, when I got my last one and Annie's spritz that she was having, Aperol spritz.
Yep.
So it's the size of my head. They were huge. He goes, where are you from? And I'm like, I can't say Bangor, Maine. They're not gonna know where that is. So I just said, oh, north of Boston. And he's like, yeah, we don't drink like this here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I should have picked a tonic, but I was scared. But I'll tell you, that gin was also great. I enjoyed myself on that too. That was,
yeah.
I didn't need the 3rd, the 4th, or the 5th one, but I did it, whatever. So
yeah. And I gotta say to Sean as well. I mean, obviously for me, it's a very different. Like for me, gin is such a part of English heritage. I mean, gin gin became gin really with England. That's how it transitioned from Geneva. So from my ancestry, and it's not all good. In fact, a lot of it is bad. But nonetheless, it is gin. And I will say, like, I know that it's not. I obviously have a huge love for brown spirits. You've heard me speak to brown spirits. I'm Scott. I don't drink a huge amount of bourbon these days, or rye. I'm sorry, America. But Scotch, if I'm drinking a brown spirit, absolutely. And then typically I'm transitioning to gin for cocktail. Number 3 is made, just because we hadn't mentioned it, is actually made. It's not made in London, even though it says London Dry. That's a classification. It's not much in the same way that 99% of the population thinks that Kentucky is the only place in which you can make bourbon, right? It's obviously not. The vast majority is not. No, okay, majority is a stretch. A huge amount is not, with a lot coming from Indiana and elsewhere. But this is made Wyoming. that massive population of Wyoming is just churning out huge amounts of whiskey. but we are still, so we're out in Schiedam, which is really the birthplace of Geneva, like, you know, juniper-based spirits. And it is made on a 100-year-old copper pot still. So if it makes you feel any better, I know that it's a crystal clear spirit, but that second distillation, you know, when we're achieving our flavor, is at least done on a 100-year-old, you know, brick enclosed copper pot still, which does still provide you with that unctuousness that you get when you're drinking typically a brown spirit, you know, that's coming from similar stills or has that similar kind of production method.
James, I just want you to know I'm not a hater on the gin. Not at all. And like Bob
I did
said,
not get an impression.
In the summer, it's our drink of choice. And as Julia mentioned, we probably fell a little too in love with Dingle Gin when we were in Ireland last time.
Nice.
But if for no other reason too, gin is what allows a lot of these bourbon startups to start bringing in some revenue early on, because they can have that out the shelf and out the door pretty quick. So yeah, no problem.
Look, for me, this is my first chance to be patriotic. I work for a Scottish company. I speak to Scotch a huge amount of my life. I'm not Scottish. Clue for anybody that can't tell, I am English. So this is the first time that my accent is actually bang on and exact and correct for the spirit that I'm talking about. I've never tried to do a Wyoming accent, and I'm not going to try and do one.
Just say y'all. I don't know what they say.
Y'all.
Why don't we?
I heard a story that you know, most cocktails were developed by adding things to hide or mask the taste of subpar spirits. But I understand that gin and tonics were invented when British officers overseas in the tropics were drinking quinine water to avoid malaria, and they needed something to, you know, make it taste better, and so they added gin to make quinine better.
Absolutely what I hear as well. Absolutely what I hear as well. And I understand that, you know, juniper is a polarizing thing, but it's funny that the quinine in that case, like we pronounce it quinine in the UK, that obviously has medicinal qualities. But the use of juniper, I mean, gin is a newer thing, but the use of juniper dates back to like the 1100s, I think. You find Benedictine monks in Salerno writing down, maybe it was the 1400s. I wasn't there. They're writing down recipes where they're, you know, early alcohol is there to really preserve roots and herbs and spices for medicinal purposes, right? And so juniper was a massive one. I mean, when the Black Plague, this probably doesn't sound great for this has nothing to do with number 3 gin. I don't know why I'm talking about the Black Death with number 3 gin, but juniper, you know, was, I mean, people used to keep juniper in like little, you know, pouches, those old, not witch doctors, but you know, like the doctors with the bird mask head. I hope you know what I'm talking about. They used to have juniper berries in there.
I know what you're talking about. Can you do the motions again though? Because that was
it's a bird with this nose and the head. But they used to keep juniper in there. You know, juniper has a huge history from the medicinal side. It's interesting that then it was used to continue masking with the quinine as well for tonic. Yeah, it's cool.
And this swan tonic from South Africa, they actually use the bark from the tree. They don't use the powder, which I thought was
I remember
kind
you saying.
when I was researching that. So let's get our pieces and parts, our mise en place in place for this. You want to have your tonic, you want to have your green, and you want to have your orange. Let's go into a white Negroni. So we're going to use 1.5 ounces of, I said 1.5 ounces, 1.5 ounces of number 3 gin, 3/4 ounce of the Blanc vermouth. So this vermouth is going to have be a little sweeter, obviously, than the dry, a little more profile to it. And then 3/4 ounce of our aperitif. So James, as I'm stirring this, because there's no fat and no citrus in it, there is a standing debate in our bar between Courtney and I about how to serve a Negroni.
Okay.
either up or on a rock. I'm not saying we're going to argue about it and we get mad at each other and we don't talk to each other, but there's heated discussions about it.
I have never come across that as a question. I've only ever had Negronis served to me over ice. Adding anything over ice, I know it continues to dilute, but I think that Negronis are pretty punchy drinks. I think it would be fine. Honestly, I thought you were going to say whether or not you were going to finger stir your Negronis in honor of Gary Regan or something. I didn't think you were going to.
I have that spoon in my home bar.
I think I've got that in front of me. Here it is. Yeah, his silver finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I've always said
guy
over
for
ice.
Negronis.
I've always said
Courtney
over
likes
ice.
them up.
And she can like them up.
Yeah. And I got to say, she makes a great Negroni, and everything else she does well is amazing. So I'll drink whatever she gives me, but
I'll say that for me, part of the reason I would want it up is I feel like it, if I'm in the Amalfi Coast or somewhere, and I'm not there, I'm in Maryland, but if I was there, I would love to have it over ice, enjoy it as an aperitif or as a digestive. I really can go both ways with Negroni. I like it both after dinner and I like it before naturally, which I think is where it's, traditionally is going to belong. But I mean, the aperitivo hour in Italy, I can't think of anything that doesn't have ice in, as a tradition. So I'm on the ice side, but I'm not going to argue with Courtney because she makes better drinks than me. So, easy win.
Matthew, I just saw your question. Yes, the reason why they call Fever Tree is because of the quinine. That's where that name started. Courtney, I don't talk to her on her days off as a rule. I respect her time off, but she is likely, because the weather's so beautiful today, winning a tournament in Frisbee golf, which I'm kind of quietly concerned she's going to go pro and leave me for a Frisbee golf career. So I'm trying to.
Is there a difference between Frisbee golf and Ultimate Frisbee? Is Ultimate Frisbee golf is
like you
different
take
game.
your disc and it's called disc golf. I don't think she would like it if I called it Frisbee golf. Disc golf. If you take your disc and you throw it into a chain net thing.
It's the hoop
Frisbee
thing.
is like soccer/football.
And
you're running around catching a Frisbee and throwing a Frisbee.
Not in Negroni, he's done it.
I saved myself a lot of embarrassment there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Apart from publicly.
Negroni, honey.
Here.
What do we think of the white Negroni? This is different. If you're a Negroni fan, a lot of times white Negronis are not where people land. Rick is pointing at Elizabeth. Does Elizabeth approve of the white Negroni? This is not her normal. She gave a shrug of like, get me to the last cocktail. That's what the shrug was. I'm a fan.
I feel like this way, when it's a white Negroni, you know that you're definitely not drinking Beetlejuice, right?
Right.
Not that Campari's been using it, but
you and I have had this conversation. I think I tend, the more bitter the cocktail, the more I like it. Sfumato is at my home bar, and I'll often have a pour neat. Like I'm all in on the bitter. I think it's because my mom was bitter. Let's have a therapy session, James. I think that's why I land that way. But
and you want to do this publicly? I mean, it's cocktails with friends, so I know you're in a safe place, right? It's fine. Okay.
It's a great alternative for guests who don't like the sharp bitter of tonic. Yeah, I agree with that, Matt. White Negroni, thumbs up. Thanks, Raph. Elizabeth is unsure of it. You just have to drink more of them. That's what I find. If you're unsure of a cocktail, just drink more.
I will say in general.
It's Monday, Bob. It's Monday.
Yes, it's Monday. It's the furthest time away from the weekend. Now's the time.
You work for a company that has your last name in the title. You can take tomorrow off. It's fine.
I will say that for most cocktails, if I have an opportunity to have a cocktail close to being completely crystal clear, when I think it should have a color, for some reason I like it more. Whether it's no matter how it's been clarified, there's something so satisfying about having even citrus, just a daiquiri that's crystal clear. There's something that's really exciting about it to me, even if it doesn't taste exactly like daiquiri.
I love that one too much. I have to get it out of my hand because that would have been the problem for the next one. So the next one is on the world of gin cocktails. I feel like it's probably the third most popular. I'm trying to think of what could be more popular than this. One thing I can think of is a martini and a gin and tonic is a traditional Negroni. It is the cousin to my favorite cocktail, the Boulevardet. So it's a 1-to-1-to-1 cocktail. Sweet vermouth, Campari, and gin. And if you're building your home bar, the nice thing is if you have sweet vermouth and Campari, you have the ingredients for two great cocktails, your Boulevardet and your Negroni. Because all you do is you take the gin out, replace it with a whiskey, and you have your Boulevardet. So what I did something a little different because I know Campari is
delicious.
It is, right? Like it's amazing, but some people have head trash on it. Like Courtney will say, anytime you see a cocktail on our menu that has Campari, you know it's my cocktail, right? Because Courtney has a reaction to just the word Campari. She doesn't like that cocktail. It's not for her, and that's fine. She knows that, and I keep telling her that she has to keep doing a no thank you sip on cocktails that we make, and she'll be like, "Yep, that's for you." You know, she'll take it and hand me the glass, and that's actually works well for us because I get more of those. But what I did with this is I took a bottle of Campari, so 750 milliliters, 25.4 ounces, and I put it into a large mason jar with a quarter cup of honey and the juice from one orange. So Campari already has an orange flavor to it, a citrus and the bite to it. I'm enhancing that and adding a little sweetness. I put it in our sous vide bath at 140 degrees for 5 hours. Took it out, put it in an ice bath to bring it back to temperature, and put it in these beautiful samples, these little sample glasses for you. So we're going to make a Negroni. We're going to do 1 ounce of the honeyed Campari, 1 ounce of the sweet vermouth, and 1 ounce of number 3 gin. Thoroughly stir. James, are you jumping in on this one, making one at home?
I don't have Campari. I'm using half the amount of a burner and upping my sweet vermouth and hoping that it turns out delicious. I'm sure it will.
Yeah. And this deserves an orange garnish.
You know, ironically, I'm realizing I did not bring out a rocks glass. Now I'm the one having it up. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm so glad I didn't drink all of the other ones, so I can drink every ounce of this one. Charles, I just realized you're changing the background of your ocean view there. You had a boat back there and now you have no boat. That's nice. Making me feel bad multiple times. That's good. So does anybody on the call by a show of hands or in the chat, do they, Matthew, I'll come back to your question about Aperol versus Campari in a second. Does there anyone on here that does not like Campari? Like the word Campari, I see one hand from Katie, Brian's hands, Rick's hand. See, this is, yeah, quite a few hands. How does this one compare? Michelle's hands. How does this compare to the regular Campari? Is this any better? Feel free to unmute, or Denise is saying she doesn't like this either. Do we have any thoughts on the honeyed Campari? No. Katie, thank you for taking a no thank you sip. That was nice of you. I saw the look on your face when you did it.
Oh, go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I think it tastes kind of bitter. I'm not a huge fan of bitter, but I find the Campari to be a little bit bitter. And I mean, it's still drinkable. I still enjoy it, but it wouldn't be my go-to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Aperol is sweeter. If it's sweeter, then I probably would lean more towards that because that's just my preference.
So a couple substitutes you can do on a Negroni if you don't love the bitter. You can do Cappelletti. So in this order, I would go Campari is the most bitter, Cappelletti, and then Aperol. My preference would be Aperol would not make a good Negroni. I think it's very thin, and even though it has its place in my home bar and my professional bar and my life, that place is not in a Negroni. Cappelletti to me is a good substitute for Campari. James, do you have an opinion on this?
So I've got a kind of a question, and
Yeah.
it's a fine question. My take would be, if you don't like the Campari, then you probably don't like a Negroni, because for me, I feel like once you eliminate the Campari being in equal parts with the sweet vermouth, and vermouth can, so a couple of things. The Campari is bitter, and I think of Aperol as being like half Campari, because the bitterness drops, the sweetness it feels up. You can mess around with it a bit by using a sweeter vermouth, but you're still not eliminating the bitter. It's like, okay, I'm having an espresso, that's too bitter for me. Maybe if I add some sugar, oh, maybe I can have this. But if you know that you can't have it even with the sugar, then I start to feel like, then don't stop drinking espresso. Have something you like. You know, now of course, like we're here, we're tasting different things together, and that's why we're doing that. I guess the question for me is like, if I'm making it with Aperol, it's no longer a Negroni. It's something else, and that's fine. You know, it's delicious for you if that's your preference. And I'd be like, you know what? It's fine. Don't like Negronis. Lots of people will say it's one of the best cocktails in the world. That's great. That's that sense of taste. Who cares? You know?
Yeah. I love Negronis. I love Boulevardes, which are just, I mean, they're probably more bitter because the whiskey.
And see, I'm not a fan of Boulevardes. Like, and that's probably my ancestry.
You like Negronis?
Negronis all day, every day.
Really?
Boulevardier, whether it's with bourbon, whether it's with rye, I'm like, I get it, but it's not my thing. It's not my thing.
I mean, we were like really good friends up until about.
Look,
4 years.
I'm
Everybody
hoping
seemed like
we can still be friends here.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Damn, I should have gone on mute.
I was going to name
Gone on mute.
my next born James, but now I just might as well follow through with the vasectomy now. That's it. So,
Don't you already have two?
yeah.
No, you. If anybody has more than two,
Joey, listen up.
you are impressive people.
Herb, listen up.
Because I've got one and I don't know how you do it with two.
Amazing wife. That's how I do it.
And just to be clear, because this is being recorded, my wife is also amazing. Okay, I want to put that out there. As like, please, she's also amazing. It has nothing to do with that. Okay, different things.
Elizabeth, what did you think of the honeyed Campari versus the regular Campari? Because I know you're a Negroni fan.
I like it. I think it makes it a little bit sweeter, which is fine with me, but I'm also fine with it not being sweet.
Yeah.
Rick didn't like either one because he thinks Campari is evil. I was just going to say earlier that Cappelletti is the thing that we take when we're going on like a beach vacation with other friends, and I want to talk them in to Negronis because it is a little bit less in your face.
Yeah. Keep in mind, if you do want to try a Cappelletti, it's wine based, not spirit based. So you open it, you refrigerate it, and you have to consume it. It can't live in your bar on a shelf after you open it for weeks. You got to treat it like a wine because it's a wine. Just like vermouth is a wine, you have to treat it with that respect. So just to kind of keep it in perspective.
I know that we're obviously together. We are together here today with gin, of course, but a Negroni sans gin and with soda as the precursor to a Negroni would be an interesting one to try as well if you're finding that not because of the omittance of the gin, but by adding soda water and just having 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, 1 ounce of Campari or Cappelletti, it would be too sweet if you use Aperol. But that with soda as a highball, I'd be curious to know how people feel about that. Just because it's a go-to for me if I'm looking for something that's slightly lower alcohol. As much as I'm a fan of gin and Scotch and everything else, I mean, I have one liver. I have one, is it Buddhism? To my knowledge, I have one life. I don't like, if you think I have more than one, tell me more. I'm down to listen.
I'm all in on that. Yeah.
I'm all ears on that one. But lower alcohol, an Americano cocktail, just using 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, 1 ounce of Campari. And if Campari is really not your thing, I'm not saying try it, but try Campari with maybe like 1 ounce of Cocky Torino or something like that, right? Where it's going to be a little bit sweeter with soda water. I'd be curious to know how you feel, because once you start diluting, the difference between having an espresso, ironically, and having an Americano coffee, which is by adding water, I mean, it's very different. It's like having a black coffee again. Same thing can happen if you're having Campari, sweet vermouth, 1 ounce of each, soda water, orange slice. And I feel like that's worth a try as well in your aperitivo, world.
I'll give that a try. I'll try that tomorrow during pre-shift. Katie, so Katie Schaefer James has, I'm going to ask her to unmute and give me an answer to this, but I feel like she has 50, 60 bottles of gin in her home bar. Is that accurate?
40.
I overestimated.
Probably about now. I didn't bring any back this time.
So she does multiple trips a year, or pre-pandemic did multiple trips a year to the UK, and always comes back and always brings me back a gin that I have emotional tie to.
And I know that obviously today, I've given my honest opinion. This isn't, now I work for Number 3. If we had gotten together for cocktails with friends prior to Number 3 joining our company, I'd have still given you the same thing because I have stories, memories, history with the brand, and whether it's in gin and tonics, other cocktails, whatever it may be. Do you have what are some of the more either interesting or standout gins that you've had?
I tend to like gins that are a little bit floral, not really over the top. But I did like the Kew Garden gin, which is now not made any longer. It was taken over by another gin company and they changed the formula. So I didn't bother to look for that anymore. I like Twisted Nose, which is from down near Winchester. It's made with watercress. And I like that very much. Couldn't get any of that. You have to really be in the Winchester area to get that kind. I like Silent Pool, like that one.
It's funny. I've heard that name come up from the number 3 team.
Have you?
Talking about it in the UK? Yeah. I'm going to be going back in about a month, and I'm going to be doing my best to find it, to taste it, because I've heard I've heard good things. It doesn't taste like number 3, which is great because I already have number 3 and I love it. So I'd love to try other gins as well.
I also I'm blocking on the name right at the moment. I might have to walk in the other room and get it, but there's a little small distillery that makes a gin with cardamom that can't remember the name of it. I'll be back. You talk amongst yourselves.
I'll be back. I will say this does also have cardamom in.
Yeah.
But it's all about, and this is the fantastic world of gins these days. I feel like I know a number of things haven't imported over to the US, and a good example would be that there's a company called Hoxton Gin back in the UK. I feel like they used to make a pineapple. I'm thinking of coconut just because I'm thinking of pina colada. I don't know that that's what they made, but I remember tasting it to be like, wow, this really just tasted pineapple. This is pineapple. Like, it tasted like pineapple vodka, and there was a small hint of juniper. And I was like, I don't know why you're calling this gin. It's really not. It's pineapple vodka with some juniper on the side. What was this one?
Masham. It's from the town of Massam.
Well, I'm going to try and find it when I get
It's a
back.
very tiny distillery, but I really like their gin. You have to just go there to get it. And then this one, I'm sure you know, but I like this one.
Yeah.
Oh, Cowroom.
Yeah.
Mashroom. I'm going to try and find the mushroom.
Katie, what did you think of number 3?
I like number 3. I like it very much. Yeah, very much. I haven't tried it much by itself yet, though.
I mean, I will say that if floral is your thing, and this is like, I gave the definitions of like the legal definitions prior, but one thing that's a little bit newer, right, is there's this loose term, it's not legally defined, that's called New World gins or Western gins, which is where things like, aviation, Let's will fall in, the companies where gin is still, where juniper is still really there, but it maybe falls just like it's maybe on par with the other flavors and aromas, as opposed to juniper really being the main ingredient. And historically, that's been the legal definition, is that the juniper has to be the most forward aspect of it. It's my preference. It's what I love. It's it is what it is for the people. And in some respects, it's a little bit. There's other categories that can hit as well, where it's the category is set up this way, but really what your personal preference and taste is down to you. No one else gets to control that. It's great that there's legal laws around it. You think of bourbon and the fact that bourbon has to be aged in newly charred American oak casks. Well, there's a whole world of American whiskey out there that is absolutely delicious. Outrider is a great example. Outrider is not 51% corn, it's not 51% rye, so it's an American whiskey. Well, that's a beautiful place and space. It's got lots of different flavor, tastes, and there's something there for everyone when it comes to a juniper spirit, especially when it comes to cocktails.
I definitely like a some juniper in the gins. I don't like it when it starts tasting like a forest. There are some
Mhm.
California ones that taste like you're chewing on a tree, and I don't like
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
But on the
Yeah.
whole,
It's like
yeah.
it's like you're in Big Sur and you're trying to eat some pine needles on the floor.
I don't like those. But
Yeah.
no,
It's not my thing either.
This
I
right
enjoy-
here, the gray whale from California, is a lower juniper, more cucumber, more other botanical gin that's light but still nuanced. And if you want
And
something
it's
really,
sea cucumber, right?
yeah,
It's not a cucumber, but it's a
sea
sea
cucumber.
cucumber.
Sea
And I'm not
Correct,
really
correct.
sure what a sea cucumber is,
for
but I know it's
something
uh,
that's really crazy,
I thought that was a man.
wow.
McQueen and the Violet Fog.
Oh yeah, I had that
Made in
one.
Brazil. It's
I
made
had
from
it.
white rum.
Can you
and
say that one more
a
time?
McQueen and the Violet Fog.
It started its life as rum. It's delicious.
Sounds like an alternative
Oh.
band to me that I'm not
You-
gonna go watching at
It's-
2 a.m.
Ooh.
It actually is a lot sweeter, which I like because I'm not a fan of bitter. And honestly, Matt, because he's had me tasting for a long time now. We've been doing lots of tastings that I never used to be a fan of gin ever. And then I started tasting with him and he introduced me to the Cold River gin, which was a Maine made one, which actually I was really surprised that I actually liked. And then it kind of snowballed from there. And we saw that tasting at Damon's once, the
McQueen.
McQueen and the Violet Fog, and we decided to try it. And they talked about it to us about it being it's starting its life as rum. I think it's Brazilian.
Yes.
It's got lots of other botanicals infused in with it, but it's actually really pleasant and very palatable. Like
Lemongrass.
much
I
sweeter.
feel like
It
I
does
can be
have
a David
lemongrass in it,
Bowie.
but
It feels like a David Bowie cover band. I feel like I'm right there with you, Bob.
it's that. It's
Yeah.
that
You and me.
version of gin. Absolutely.
Jim has like front row seats, like early ticket get to it. You know, he's right there. I on a side note, I said I was going to wait. I made your eyeball here with the Campari and the sweet vermouth. Strongly encourage everybody to give that
You've
a try.
not had an Americano before?
What's that?
You've not had an Americano before?
I don't drink low proof spirits or low proof cocktails. That's delicious.
So the story goes that somebody, and it's story, so who knows? The story goes that a guy by the name of Count Negroni asked for a kick in his Americano, right. And so they omit the soda for the gin, and then you end up with Negroni. It's a great drink if you. I feel like, Bob, you've just, you have 2 children. You've got a very busy life. I feel like you need to make more space for low alcohol cocktails. There's the space and a place for it. There's the space and a place. There is. I'm seeing claps. I'll take it.
Nicole Leba, I don't know if you just saw her message. She said the sea cucumbers are heavily trafficked and endangered. This may be considered a blood gin.
Yikes.
Here's my one other
Scary.
one. Milk gin. It's Irish.
I just saw that it's a picture of a cow.
It's a picture of a cow.
Cow run gin, but it's actually
It's very smooth. It's very smooth.
Interesting.
That's a good marketing tool, right? Let's throw a cow on something. That's
worked. Let me see. It's made from whey alcohol.
Rhonda, I know you have a party going on at your house there at the number 2 hole on at Bangor Municipal Golf Course. What do you think of the? Oh, there you are. Hi, Rhonda. What do you think of the? What do you think of number 3?
You have a fancy camera that is zooming in and out, though you may be on mute.
Yeah, she's on mute. Aisha, can you help us?
That's a cool camera though, right? I mean, it's zooming in and out as it's turning around.
Yeah, and every time she zooms in and out, there's more latency appearing.
Holy crap.
We hear you.
Okay, that's very loud.
There they go.
I love it. I really enjoy it, actually.
Good.
I think we've had quite a bit to drink with all this gin.
Well, I failed to say this in the beginning, but I said it to a few people when they picked up. Don't be afraid to share the cocktail. Multiple cocktails. Yeah, sorry, Jim, you're retired. You can share. And Dr. Jeffrey, you're a dentist, so you're fine. Everybody else. And speaking of, that's a great time, Aisha. Can we throw up the poll question real quick of what everybody's favorite cocktail is? Out of the 4 that you had this evening, the gin and tonic was Swan and number 3, the classic gin martini, white Negroni, or the honey Negroni. What was everybody's favorite? Ooh, I get to vote because I'm not considered the host. That's exciting. And while we're waiting for everybody to click on honey Negroni, it's a good opportunity for me also to say, for those who know Aisha, she's in my top left. She's kind of like our moderator for these calls. Her last day on the floor at Novio's is the 26th, Saturday, correct? Aisha, is that the right? So Aisha has been working with me for.
It's actually next Tuesday.
Why next?
Ashlyn's covering my next Saturday. I have to work a concert.
We have this like discussion in the middle of the cocktails with
Yeah.
Okay, I know.
Wait,
Right.
are you trying to make her last night the busiest, worst night for her to work
I'll tell you what,
by
Tuesdays are
filling
pretty busy.
every single table?
You would be surprised how busy Tuesdays are, James. Sometimes they're busier than Saturdays in the summer. But Aisha has been accepted to law school at Maine Law and has decided that is more important than waiting tables. I don't really understand it, but some people like law, I guess. So
You'll understand it when you need it, Bob.
yeah, I often need them. Aisha has been working with me for 7 years.
I'm not
Short
gonna stop
after-
working for you. He also says I'll still be on these calls with everybody.
Yeah, but I mean, occasional calls, but she has been a part of my life for 7 years. And I don't often say this to her, but she is a great employee, a great person, a great friend. So I really appreciate you, Aisha, and thank you so much. And she's marrying one of my best friends. So that's even to boot. So she's part of I guess you're part of the family.
I don't have a choice.
No, you're stuck. And
On that note,
and-
though, the honey Negroni did not win. Our favorite with 46% was the classic gin martini. So 13 of our 28 votes were
it's awesome.
the classic gin martini. But then second was the honey Negroni. Only 7 of us thought that was the best. And then the gin and tonic, and then the white Negroni. So I
Right.
think your theory is wrong.
I'm into the Negroni, but you're making me so happy right now.
So
You're
I'll
making
tell you
me
what I'm
so
gonna
happy.
do. For the people on this call, and the only people who are going to know we're doing this are the people on this call. For the rest of this month, which is only half of the month, but for the rest of this month, and the month of July, so the next month and a half, come into the restaurant, ask for the Cocktail with Friends cocktail. It will be a classic martini. You're only going to get it with number 3 gin, and it's going to be $8 for the rest of the month and all next month. So it's going to be the classic gin martini for the next month and a half with number 3 gin for $8.
Herb, can you fly me to Maine quickly? Can you fly me to Maine?
I'm trying to figure out how to get there myself, but yes, you can come with me. For $8, we can buy a plane ticket.
Dr. Lebo asked if it's American or Canadian dollars. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what I know it's not going to be crypto. I know that. I mean, that's not happening. That's
Herb, the guest quarters are available for you, especially in July. Come on up.
I'm coming up, and I actually got my own key, so hopefully it'll work on your door.
You
I almost
actually
sliced my-
pried the key
I
off
al-
the front.
I almost sliced my wrist, but I got the key.
Got it off? That's impressive.
I actually want to buy a kayak, so I'm gonna fly it to Old Town and I'm gonna paddle my way down to you.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the current will just bring you right to us, I think. I think that's how that works.
Done.
So what do we think? If everybody can just kind of let me know, I got my bottle of number 3 gin from Herb the day after our Derby party. And I think we consumed most of it on Mother's Day at our barbecue. But if either unmute, drop in the chat, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs neutral. Like, what's our overall opinion on number 3 gin? Thumbs up, thumbs up. Katie, I think I saw thumbs up. Okay, thank you, Katie. Dr. Brown's team, thumbs. Look at Joey using the emoji. That's good. Nice job. Raph, nice. Thank you. And there's a bunch of people that just don't even have their cameras on, but that's fine.
And you mentioned this before, but just to like hammer it home, I mean, you really are the first people in the whole state to be not only like tasting it, but to be taking. I mean, you're definitely the first people having it as cocktails, let alone you are definitely the first people to be tasting it, because it literally just made it through the door, so to speak.
So
like it was down to the wire.
When Herb and I started planning this, Herb, did we start planning this pre-Derby or post-Derby?
No, pre-Derby, but I thought we had plenty of time.
Yeah, so we planned it pre-Derby, and I said, like, I was trying to be a good partner and not say I wanted to release it, but understanding Edrington wants this bottle to be all over the state, especially on the island, and on the back bars as restaurants and bars open. But because of how my personal calendar was lining up and obligations we had, I couldn't do it before this date. So I was like, well, we're just going to have to concede that Novios won't be launching the product because of trucks and inventory and about 100 other things. It landed in Maine on Thursday. Should have been delivered to Stompers on Friday. However, the one person that puts it in the spot left early, so it didn't get there. So it was going to get shipped to Bangor on Saturday for a pickup. But the truck driver, because it was the last thing on the truck, took it off the truck to unload other things at the beer warehouse and never put it back on the truck. So it stayed at the beer warehouse over the weekend and didn't make it to Bangor as it was planned. So today somebody had to pick it up in Augusta and drive it to Stompers for me to pick up at Stompers and bring here about 20 minutes before Charles Stanhope picked up his first bottle of the event. So literally the only bottles in the wild in Maine
are here,
are at Stompers are at my restaurant and in your bar and in your home bars.
You know what? That's a 2022 par for the course martini.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Bob, I don't have the full details, but it feels like the pallet of number 3 gin might have sat outside at Pine State for the weekend when the guy.
Oh my God! Don't tell me that.
Yeah. Like he took it off the truck so he could get to the beer that was behind it. He got to the beer and then shut the truck door and drove away. He forgot to put the pallet of number 3 back on the truck.
I hope the union is really good for truck drivers at Pine State.
Well, and then you know why Stompers couldn't go get it is because it's supposed to be in a bonded warehouse.
And it's not in a bonded warehouse for liquor, so it can't even.
I think it was sitting out in the weather. We could have had free number 3 gin.
I would also like to say, I don't know how many people are watching this, but Victoria has been running around putting kids to bed, having cocktails and everything else. So Gold Star and having oatmeal, is that like,
Oatmeal. It's the end of the day.
I don't know. It looked like
No, it is Cajun chicken sausage penne that I cooked.
Oatmeal.
she is crushing the day over there, just running. I keep watching her. I'm like, now she has 2 kids, eating like great job. That's more than
And
I.
Julia and I were actually applauding her efforts earlier. Like, go play with your toys. Mommy needs to drink her special drink.
Yeah, that's solid effort. Solid effort. I appreciate
You guys should see the pic. So the kids actually prepared 2 of the drinks for me, and I have pictures of them posing with the drinks. So,
Okay, just don't post it on social media. Do not post it on social media. If you do, tag a different brand.
I will say I often tell the story that I was making Manhattans for my father and his army buddies at 8 years old, when they came over to the house to play cards. And that was the first cocktails I ever made was for my father making Manhattans, stirred in a coupe, and everything else. So I guess that was 1983. That's a little different too. And there was no social media or moms. So we, but
Moms didn't exist at the time.
well,
They
not a,
just
I'm gonna have to start paying everybody the same amount I pay my therapist. We get into this anymore. So,
Hey, James, they existed and they also smoked.
yeah.
all through their pregnancy.
Dr. Jeffrey, what are your thoughts on number 3? You've been very quiet. I know you woke up at 4 a.m. with your boy. You got to unmute. Oh, there you go.
No, I like it. It's really good.
Good.
I like dry, and it's good.
Did you? So if you like dry, did you like the white Negroni, or did you?
No, I like the bitter one.
The bitter.
Yeah.
The regular, the honey.
Yeah.
That's why
But the martini was the best.
No, I was gonna say that's why you and I are friends, but then
Sorry,
you
man.
it.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, so one thing that I did not mention as well, when it came to making this gin, is that we consulted a lot of professionals in what they do, but the 2 people that were most responsible for the final flavor profile was a guy called Dr. David Clutton, who's the only person smart enough to pursue a PhD in gin, which I feel like is a smart choice in your life, specifically the flavor profile of botanicals and what they add to a gin.
Is there a
coriander?
School? Is there a school for this, or
No,
is it
no, it's just that his PhD was in the flavors of gin.
Got it.
Which seemingly no one else decided to do, probably because they were doing brown spirits, which I get as well. That's cool. But it was with him and a guy called Alessandro Palazzi. Outside of England, this might not be as much of a thing. When I was cutting my teeth as a bartender in central London and a head bartender, it was a lot of my work was focused around what's happening in England because I'm English. That's how it went down. The Duke's Hotel and Duke's Bar at that hotel is known for 2 things: their martini, and it was the birthplace of the Vesper that we mentioned before, which is the shaken cocktail using gin and vodka and Lillet, though historically Lillet used to have more quinine, quina. So nowadays people use cocky Americano because it's slightly more bitter than the aromatized, fortified aromatized wine.
Yeah,
I
because
might
now
get that wrong.
Now it's made with wine based, and it's a little softer.
Yeah, it's a little softer, sweeter than it used to be. So a lot of people, if they're making the Vesper, the true martini, the true James Bond shaken martini, they're making it with cookie Americano, and it is where Ian Fleming used to write. It was his haunt. That's where he used to go to drink, and that is obviously the person that's responsible for all of the original James Bonds. And so that's kind of part of our history too. Not only we used for the martini today there, but also the Vesper, the head bartender that's there, Alessandro, who's been a bartender for like 46 years, you know, a more mature Italian bartender, was integral in making the gin itself. So it's not surprising that the martini was one of the was in this case the top winner for cocktails.
And he's still bartending there, according to.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. He's still there. He's still there.
So I think we need to do a Novio's chartered flight and have his cocktails and see how that is too, right? Is that?
And I think everyone on this call should pay for my flight out there as part of it. I mean,
when you say your flight, you mean our flight, right?
Look, I'll cover my visa back to the UK.
James, I'll pay for your flight. James, I got your flight. This is perfect.
Thanks,
I got your flight. Yeah.
Dr. Serbernaut, Dr. Freeze, what was your favorite? What did you think? You've been quiet, so I'm going to call you out.
We both liked the last one, the honey macaroni.
Yeah, on one rock. The way
the right way.
I think I had too many Negronis Bob's way, so I'm kind of
yeah.
But yeah, I like all of them. Actually, the white Negroni was interesting too, because it was a little bit different and a little more subtle. Still sweet, but subtle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely on the Negroni team. So
excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining. Got a couple quick things coming up. Not anything to put on your calendars or anything else, but the big thing is our annual summer vacation starts June 26th. We'll be returning on July 7th with a brand new menu from the kitchen. Only thing staying is the caprese salad and the chowder. Everything else is rotating off for the next menu.
And the number 3.
What's that?
And the number 3 that's gonna stay, right?
The number 3 gin, the number 3 cocktails with friends for the people on this call will be $8. And then we will be offering some new cocktails as well in the bistro that will be launching when we return on July 7th. And we have a new staff member starting on that day. Well, not that day, the following Tuesday. Her name is Annie. I'm bringing Annie out of retirement, and she is going to be back in the bistro at least on Tuesdays, hopefully one other day, but at least one day a week. So for those who have missed my wife, she will be in the restaurant again.
Does that mean there are 2 very short line cooks or barbacks as well?
You know, the nice thing is her family loves her and the boys. So her aunt is taking, now everybody knows, her aunt is taking the boys on Tuesday nights to give Annie the flexibility to come in. So that free daycare makes it possible. But yeah, so she'll be in on Tuesdays covering Aisha shifts because she'll be going to law school. Or I guess I'm taking Aisha's shift behind the bar. Annie's taking my shift, and we'll go from there. But thank you so much for joining us. Herb, I don't know if we have another Cocktails with Friends planned. Please watch your emails and your text messages and everything else, and we will let you know when things come, and we'll be doing them again shortly. Wine dinners will be monthly coming up. So if you've been enjoying our wine dinners, those will be monthly. And there has been rumor in October of Barton Seaver. If everyone remembers Barton Seaver, he worked with Senator Clinton and Secretary Clinton with the seafood sustainability. He works for National Geographic and has done many cookbooks. he is going to be doing a virtual cooking class with us in October to support his new cooking book coming out, which will pair with wine. So if you're a horrible cook of seafood, you can learn something and just drink wine. So even if it's not great, you still have some wine to have. So that will be sometime in October. I'll make sure the people on this call know about that first, because that will be limited enrollment. James, if you want to join us, I'll ship you out some seafood to that. That should be good.
Again, her flights. Yeah.
Flight,
Great.
yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, happy to help you. John saying, I saw you at a baseball game. Was that at Maine, John?
Sorry, that was at our 5-year-old's t-ball game there.
It was
And that was my wife who said she saw you. I have no idea who she was talking about, but
One of the moms.
I definitely
talk to Alex.
One of the moms.
I-
who's having- two kids. Our kids played today too, and her kid played today.
Cranking out home runs.
Oh, I can tell you, I was not at a baseball game. My
Oh,
boys
no,
are.
no, another.
They
one of the-
were referring to someone else on
Oh,
camera.
okay. Okay, good. I was like, no, I promise you, I wasn't at it. I'll trade my good night by vacation. Bob, wonderful time. Okay, awesome. So if there's any questions for myself or James or Herb, or if you have any questions about your teeth cleaning, I think Old Town Dentistry is accepting new patients. They're not listening, but that's it. Yep, thumbs up. Yeah, they're taking new patients. So if you need a teeth cleaning, you go see them. Jen,
Bob,
do
I've
you
got a
have-
quick question.
Yeah.
You were talking about being
Yeah.
an island off of Portugal earlier. Which island was that?
Who, me? I wasn't in Portugal.
Oh, I thought you said you were on an island with your wife's
Oh,
family.
oh, I'm sorry. When I refer to that, MDI.
Oh. I think we crossed our lines there.
I would love to be in Portugal. Herb, can I get a ticket to Portugal if you're
Check
taking
it out. Yeah, there's some good gin and tonic bars over there.
Wait a minute. What part of Portugal is an island? I'm really
PWI is
confused
about
with
all
the
I got.
geography right now.
Go to the Azores. They're an autonomous region of Portugal.
Sounds great, Herb. You've got
Herb, we got to go to Portugal. There's gin and tonics to be had.
and
I-
an
I was-
autonomous
I was-
island. It sounds
I was
great.
thinking BWI, but I'll work on the Azores.
Hey, thanks, Bob. Thanks, James. And thanks, Herb. Another wonderful evening with friends. Thank you.
Thank you. And Herb, let's have a serious conversation about a trip to charter flight to London for number 3 gin. I think that would be a lot of fun.
All right, we need to work on that, but you got it. James, thanks very much. Great job. Bob, as always, we can't be more thankful for your support and everything you've done for our brand. So it's great to see such enthusiasm, and this was great. And I'm not a Campari guy, just for the record.
I appreciate you, Herb. And I think we're done with all your brands now and all your releases. So I don't think we have to talk every day for a while.
That's because you said you're not a Campari guy, Herb.
Yeah.
If you didn't say that, we'd still be going. And you said it. So goodbye.
Trust me, he's going to call me tomorrow morning at 9. You watch.